Hello, hello. What's up? Hi. Welcome to episode 2, let's say, of the Costa Rican Cancer Basketball Diaries. I've now been down here in San Jose for a little more than 2 weeks as a member of the San Jose Abogados, a professional basketball club, along with my buddy Case. We flew out here from San Luis Obispo and are seeing what we can see and trying to assimilate to life as pseudo locals in Escalante, San Jose. I say that really facetiously. We stick out just absolutely everywhere we go. Our Spanish is slowly improving, but it's not going to change the fact that we are the gringos here. We are definitely targets for looks and targets for all sorts of shenanigans. That's the fun part. The not fun part is the basketball versus my expectations so far. And I'm a stage 4 cancer patient. I've been dealing with disappointment and ups and downs and having to meet reality somewhere in the middle a lot in the last 7 years. And this is just a different version of that because I'm not really sure what I expected when I set out on this journey. I'm 37. I have arthritis in both my hips. I am doing active cancer treatment, and I haven't played organized basketball in 16 or 17 years or something like that. And so upon arrival, it's worth noting that my friend Case is probably going to be the best player in the league when he's healthy. He's hurt to begin with, so he can't get in there. He can't kind of solidify our worth as a tandem that they brought over. Similarly, I am just not used to structured basketball. And as a 6 foot tall point guard who doesn't bring a ton of upside at age 37, we're getting a little bit into basketball specifics. Those of you who don't watch basketball, you can kind of tune this out. But the point is that I am not earning any minutes as we're playing in practice. Like, to put it more bluntly, I suck in the environment that I'm in, and I'm not used to that in a basketball sense. I've been kind of a big fish in a small pond for as long as I can remember in San Luis Obispo. And I've always been able to smoke and mirrors my way through things as I've gotten older. And now as my body is changing, I'm forced to accept that the speed of a professional game and the structure of a practice, especially coming in 70% of the way through a season, is not allowing me to stand out in any way that the coach would be inclined to play me in games. And I completely understand that. I mean, that's not the point of why I came down here, but it's really frustrating. Basketball is a big part of my identity. Succeeding at something competitive is a big part of what I like to do. And right now I'm floundering a little. That being said, there is always room to zoom out in life, especially, like I said, one of a cancer patient who is used to dealing with lots of swings, who is used to dealing with, okay, this isn't exactly what I thought was going to happen, but how do we make the best of it? So we zoom out for a second, and we are basically living an all expenses paid vacation to Costa Rica in a really nice apartment in a thriving part of a downtown that I'm having fun exploring. I'm on an adventure with my friend. My girlfriend's going to get out here in a week. I'm homesick as hell, but I'm living in another country, which I haven't done in a long, long time. And this is at worst very fun. But at the same time, I think my frustration is reasonable, even if it's a little bit silly to be frustrated that I can't compete in a professional basketball league at my age and in my condition. It's one of those things where it's never fun to admit your limitations or to have to adjust your perception of who you are. And I'm, no offense to the team we're on, the guys we're playing with, but in my mind, I am well past the level of play here. I am definitely someone who could make an impact on a day-to-day basis. Any version of the basketball player that I was prior to these last few years, let's say. And maybe that's being generous to myself. Maybe I'm being conceited, but I don't know. I've played a lot of basketball, and I can tell good and bad basketball, and I can tell basketball where I would be able to thrive. And this should be that. But my brain is writing checks that my body, and specifically my hips and back, cannot check. And so again, there's just no impetus for the coach or anyone to feel super impressed. And it's more like, okay, well, you're part of the team. How can you contribute? And so that's where my mindset has to shift to. How can I contribute? How can I be a good teammate? How can I be a good friend? How can I potentially earn the trust of this team in a way that's different than just being like that guy at practice? It's weird because a lot of, if not all of the guys are under 30. I think the oldest guy outside of me is 30. And there's not any sympathy or empathy for someone in my position because they have no relativity to what I'm going through, what it's like to be an aging athlete, nor should they. I'm not asking for that sympathy or empathy. But, when I'm playing with guys back home who I've played with for years and years and years and years, there is some level of support that I get from that. There is some level of encouragement. These guys are like, man, you don't move that quickly. And I'm like, yeah, I understand. But I'm focusing a little too much on the basketball. After all, this is a cancer vlog with an emphasis on, what we can do as cancer patients when we get out of our comfort zone. And believe me, this is getting well outside my comfort zone. So again, zooming back out, it's been a trip to live abroad for these 17 days or whatever it's been, because I've done trips like this before, back when I was playing poker for a living, or when I decided I wanted to take off from my little bubble in San Luis Obispo. But I haven't done it since I've become a cancer patient, and I certainly haven't approached this idea while going through treatment. And that's another form of limitation that I think I have to be realistic about, because a lot of the ways in which I'm willing to push my body or capable of pushing my body come with the reciprocal damage and or discomfort of what it's like to be taking PD-1 blockers for advanced metastatic melanoma. And as much as I'd like to pretend that I am bulletproof through this process, I mean, you keep getting cancer, you keep having successful treatments, and all of a sudden you get it in your brain like, okay, I can deal with anything. I feel like shit a lot of these days. And it's kind of a bummer because I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to be fun on this trip. And I can tell that sometimes the energy I'm bringing to the apartment, hanging out with Case, or to the team is a little bit of like this sullen, what do I do about this energy? And it's not a good way to be a friend or a teammate. And I don't think anyone is being critical of me for it. Just to be clear, the kids on the team, or the men on this team who seem like kids to me, as well as Case and the coach and the staff, they know my story. They know why I'm here, and they know what they can or should expect from me, which is not a lot. Like I said, I'm not an integral part of the team. I am just kind of along for the ride right now. But again, if you're going to be a good teammate in that position, if you're going to be a good travel buddy, it's not fun to be like, well, I practiced really hard today, so now I need to sleep for 11 hours or whatever it is. And this is getting into a pretty long rant, but I think the takeaway from it is that I'm living some version of a dream of mine right now just by being out here with a professional basketball club. This is something that I've wanted to do perhaps in a different role. I would have loved to have done this when I was a better basketball player, when I had like working legs and stuff. But nonetheless, basketball is my favorite activity on the planet. Being with the team is super fun for me, and I'm getting essentially paid to hang out and experience a city and goof around with these guys. I don't want to make it seem like I'm not having fun. I think I sat down to get this off my chest because I'm frustrated. And when I'm frustrated, when I'm having a bad time, I mean, if you've watched any episodes of this vlog, I often come here to ideate, even when it's related to cancer struggles or related to my life in San Luis Obispo. I come here to vent because usually when I talk through this process, it ends up yielding some solutions. I end up listening to myself and saying, hey, there's no need to really feel like this, or here's how I can get through these feelings. And I think I'm getting a little bit of that by talking right now, because when I say it out loud, when I put it in the plainest terms, I am on a sweet adventure. I've been to the beaches and the jungle, and I've tried awesome food, and I've met new people, and my Spanish is getting back towards fluidity that I haven't had in 20 years. And I really, at worst, this is just a fun time for me to kind of disassociate from the year of cancer treatment that I'm doing, while at the same time finishing it out. I don't know too many people who get the opportunity to travel abroad for a couple months while finishing cancer treatment for stage 4 metastatic melanoma. And it's not like that's a badge that I need. I've already had a really unique path in terms of being a cancer patient, and I hope and believe that that will continue. So that's not what I'm chasing, but it's one of those things that when I zoom out, it does make me feel a little better. And it does make me feel certain that as I get more settled in, as I'm able to acclimate my mind and my body to the realities of this adventure, I'm going to have a better time. And often I will say, what's the takeaway? What do we learn from this as cancer patients or the loved ones of cancer patients? Because that's generally the people who are watching this channel. But I actually think there's just a broader application to life, to everyone in general. I don't want to make myself sound too wise or too profound, but I think expectation versus reality is something we all struggle with at times. And it's a skill to adjust, and it's a skill to be content with where you're at if you're on the path to progress, if you're on the path to making things better. And I'm an impatient dude. I'm not going to pretend like I'm always perfect at that. But being a cancer patient has really taught me that sometimes you have to sit in the area you're in. You have to accept that, okay, this year is going to be an off year for treatment, let's say, which is funny because that's how I entered this year. I said, okay, this will be a lost year in terms of work and enjoyment and building my body and, staying in shape, whatever. All these expectations were zero because I didn't know what it was going to look like to do PD-1 blockers, and I didn't know if my cancer would be managed, and I didn't know that I would get to a point where the side effects were not severe and I could be so free to roam about the countries. And it turns out that's true. And so all of a sudden, my expectations shot way back up when in reality, I'm still in the same space of a year of doing cancer treatment. I am still achieving things in this year that if you told me I would be doing them 10 months ago, I would find incredible. So ultimately, I don't think I have a lot to complain about. And in fact, I think that leaning into the positivity and accepting that I have a different role than maybe I had envisioned on the way out here is a positive, and I can find things from it. So this has been an odd brain dump, but my hope is that if someone's watching this who has cancer or their loved one has cancer, even if they just find themselves in a weird situation in life and they want something to relate to, that maybe I can provide that. Again, maybe I'm pumping myself up too much, but that's the perk of having your own vlog where you sit here in front of a camera and say, I got to get this off my chest. I got this off my chest today. So my goal coming back for the next time I talk to you guys is to have many, many positive updates and maybe some pictures and videos of what I'm doing out here in Costa Rica, because it's not just sitting in an apartment and bitching, and it's not just getting my ass handed to me in basketball practice. So I'll make sure to get more of that. Until next time, guys, this has been an interesting one. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.